We love the ability to use credit card points and miles in so many ways. You may think that we primarily use them for flashy redemptions to places like Greece, Hawaii, and the Maldives. But today we're going to talk about all of our less sexy redemptions too. Hang on as we talk about sexy versus unsexy award redemptions. Welcome to Points Talk with the Travel Mom Squad. Hey, I'm Alex.
And I'm Pam, Alex's mom.
And I'm Jess. Let's talk points. Today, we are talking all about award redemptions. We are so lucky to have a lot of credit card points and miles, but we also use them in so many ways, like Southwest Airlines. Yep. But also Emirates First Class. Yep. Let's talk about sexy versus unsexy award redemptions and why both are important to our strategies. So, Pam, kick us off. What's a sexy award redemption?
A sexy award redemption is a Pam award redemption. I love my sexy award redemptions. Most of the time, mine fall in this category. That means I'm flying business class for all my international flights. I'm staying at luxury hotels. And that has a lot to do with a couple factors. One is age. So I'm older. I've done a lot of the unsexy award redemptions, and I still do some of them. But, I don't have a huge family that I'm traveling with. So my points and miles will go a lot further. So I can afford to put out a lot more points for a really sexy business lay flat seat. And that's what I like to do. If you are a family and your points have to go further, that may be something you can't do right now. But there are sexy family redemptions that a family can do too. I think that even if you're traveling on Southwest Airlines and you're going to Hawaii, I mean, that's a sexy redemption anytime you're going somewhere like that. So it doesn't mean that you got to wait till you're retired and old until you can have a sexy award redemption. But there is kind of a difference between the two, and both are okay. So Alex and Jess, tell us a little bit more about some unsexy award redemptions that you can do with points and miles.
All right, so unsexy award redemptions are usually like a means to an end. It's things you have to do. It's not sometimes you would choose to do these things, like you want to go visit your family and you're going to stay at a Hyatt Place hotel. That's fantastic. Sometimes, though, it's things where I have to be at this certain place at this certain time. And so I don't want to pay for it. So I'm going to use points. So some examples of that would be you have to go for an event for your kid, whether, they're in a dance competition or in my case, a lot of times that's a soccer tournament. We know we have to be in Southern Utah this weekend for these days, and I don't want to spend a bunch of money for that. So I'm going to use points or free night certificates. That would be like, I kind of feel like when you're staying at those budget hotels, a lot of times that can be an unsexy redemption is I'm staying at Hyatt Place or Spring Hill Suites, kind of things like that. Another unsexy award redemption might be you're going to a wedding. Now, if you're going to a destination wedding and you're staying, at like the Ondas Maui and they're getting married there, that's a pretty sexy redemption. But if you're just going, oh, I got to fly to Wisconsin for my friend's wedding and we're just staying at this local hotel, maybe not as sexy. Weather changes. We've had to do this a bunch of times where we are, we have a positioning flight. And so we have to get to the destination the night before if we're flying out early the next morning, or when all three of us went to Singapore, we flew back to Chicago. We didn't get in till like 9 at night or something like that. And there's no flights leaving that night to go back to our home airports. And so we had to stay the night in an airport hotel. Not the most sexy of redemptions. So one thing though that I want to just make clear is if you only get into this hobby for unsexy redemptions, that is fantastic. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's so many times where I think, man, even if people don't want to travel, like that's not really their thing. Everybody has to stay in a hotel every now and then. So everybody should be doing unsexy redemptions. In my opinion, those are the easiest redemptions to do. They're way less complicated. Any redemption is fantastic. So don't feel like when we say unsexy, it means they're bad redemptions. They're not. They're just not as flashy. So,
well, the fact that you can make that unsexy redemption with points and miles and have it cost you nothing is kind of sexy.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, Jess, share a couple more of those, less flashy redemptions.
Well, to Pam's point about age, you can be 38 and still aspire to make a majority sexy redemptions. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to keep up with Pam.
you do that, Jeff.
Pam is my inspo, and I'm like, I just want to be like Pam. So I'm going to try my best to make sexy redemptions. But my entire first year of points and miles was unsexy redemptions. Like the entire first year, we were at a point where like it was either unsexy redemptions or don't travel at all, you know? And so Southwest and Hyatt Place and Hyatt House were my go-to for the entire first year that I did this. So I've had my fair share of unsexy redemptions. Some other examples might be like to go to a funeral, to go fly and see family for something like that. I've had my fair share of hotel stays during natural disasters like hurricanes, living in Houston, a freeze, shutting down the power across our state. Like last year around this time, we did a renovation at our house, and there were times where we had to go stay at a hotel because they were redoing our floors and we couldn't be around, the fumes and everything. So hotel points came in clutch for me during those times. Another time is just convenience. If you want to get like Ted and I went to London and we were flying out early the morning we were leaving to come home. I didn't want to spend 40,000 Hyatt points just to leave the hotel at 6 a.m. And so we went and stayed at the hotel by the airport for 12,000 points instead, So just convenience, wanting to stay near a hotel before you fly out or the night you fly in if you're getting in late. Those are all examples where unsexy redemptions can really save you money and also just be really convenient lifesavers in those situations.
All right, we're each going to share now a couple of our favorite unsexy and unsexy redemptions that we have made. So I'll go first. I would say my favorite sexy redemption was my trip to Maldives because it was such a trip that I just never really imagined like I'd actually be able to do. And so we stayed in an overwater villa. And I will say, like, the hotel we stayed at was really nice and we loved it. We stayed at Le Meridian Maldives, but it's not, the Conrad or, the Waldorf Astoria. It's not, or the Ritz. It's not the top tier luxury hotel brand with Marriott, but it was still very nice and it was brand new. And it was an overwater villa. Like, you can't beat an overwater villa. So what really kind of made that trip even better was how we flew there. So the whole trip was just like, pinch me, pinch me, pinch me. How is this all happening right now? So we flew Emirates business class from JFK to Dubai and then Dubai to Male. And so incredible. It was my husband's first time flying business class. Emirates is a fantastic airline. We love flying Emirates. And then coming home, we flew Qatar Q Suite. And so I mean, if you've probably heard us talk about Q Suite, which Jess still needs to do, but my mom and I have done it. And they say it's the best business class out there. And they say that for a reason. It is incredible. And so that was a pretty sexy trip, being able to do Overwater Villa, Emirates, and Qatar Q Suite. So that one takes the cake as like a whole entire trip. Some unsexy redemptions would definitely be going for my kids' sports because, we're staying at Hyatt Place, Spring Hill Suites, Holiday Inn Express. But they're really, really fun, unsexy redemptions because it's really fun to go watch the kids play, socialize with the other moms on the sidelines, and it's just a lot of fun. I will say we are headed, well, by the time this airs, we'll be back, but we'll be heading to a tournament here soon in a couple of weeks. And a lot of the other families, they get Airbnbs and, so they have a kitchen, they have 2 bedrooms, they have space for everybody. And there's times I'm like, that seems really nice to have that space and not be in a hotel room with all 6 of us. Granted, like, and we're staying at hotel rooms with occupancy for all 6 of us, which makes it nice. So we do have enough bed space.
But we're coming too, so you're losing one child to us.
Yes, that is true. But I'm always like, oh, that would be really nice to stay at a nice Airbnb and have a pool there. I mean, the hotel has a pool, but it's like they're not hotel pools at these properties aren't usually that large, and there's a lot of people in them because the hotels are always at capacity for these tournaments. Because there's like 2 soccer tournaments going on at the same time. There's some baseball tournaments. That weekend in St. George, Utah is littered with people. So it's not like it's super relaxing. But anyway, I just can't justify it. Every year I think maybe we should do an Airbnb. I'm like, no, that's dumb. I have these Marriott free night certificates. I don't know how else I'm going to use them. Like, so I just plan on using them every year for soccer tournaments. And it might not be sexy, but it's still fun. And sometimes I do think that would be really nice to stay in a place, but I can't justify spending like $1,500 or however much people are paying to do that. So
I don't understand how parents can follow their kids around and not have points on miles and do this for all these multiple tournaments. It boggles my mind. I can't imagine if I'd had to have done that when you guys were little.
yeah. Another one that wasn't, a very sexy redemption was my sister broke her foot. It was really bad. It wasn't just like she broke her foot. She was a major break. She had to have surgery. She couldn't be on her foot for a very, very long time. Her husband was going out of town. I think my dad was around, but I think my mom, you were maybe visiting Lindsay in London or
I
something.
think your dad and I were both gone. I think, it was
Okay,
just
so
yeah.
it was kind of like, what am I gonna do? And I was like, I can fly out. Like, so I flew out. I kept her company, made her some dinners, drove her around where she needed to be. And it was actually really fun because I just slept in bed with her, and every night we would watch movies in her bed. And so it was really fun, but it wasn't like, ooh, I'm using points and miles to fly to Denver and take care of my sister with her broken foot. It doesn't sound quite so sexy, but that's what's really nice about this hobby, though, is being able to do those kinds of things and not have to think twice of, oh, that's going to cost a lot of money. I don't know, because it was kind of a last minute flight, and sometimes those can be pretty pricey, but it's like, oh, I have the points. No big deal. I don't have to think twice. Yeah, I'll come out and hang out with you for a few days until mom and dad get back or your husband's back from his work trip. And so those are just a few examples of some of my sexy and unsexy trips. Okay, Mom, what about you?
Well, I could tell you about all my past trips that are almost
You could
all
talk
sexy trips.
for all day long about your sexy redemption. So
Yeah, I could. But I'm going to tell you about, I have an upcoming trip I'm really excited about that's going to be pretty sexy. That's a return trip to Thailand. I love Thailand. Been there before, my first redemption that I ever did, but I'm doing it in a sexy style this time. So I'm traveling in Singapore business class. My husband and myself are going with my daughter that broke her foot and her husband. So Singapore business class to and from. Love Singapore business class. You want a sexy experience, you travel there. Best food, best seats, best flight attendants, everything is just amazing. And we are using points to stay at the Conrad Koh Samui. Actually, I'm using Hilton free night certificates to stay there. I've been saving them for a sexy redemption, and this is it. And then we are moving over to the Ritz-Carlton, and, what more can I say? That is a great stay also. So I'm excited for that. I anticipate that to be a very sexy redemption. I've done several unsexy redemptions, though, too. When COVID happened, my granddaughter that lives in London suddenly had to be hospitalized. And, we're in the middle of COVID, and I'm worried about my daughter, how she's, going to deal taking care of her family, about this sweet little grandchild. And I'm going, I got to get to London. And I mean, I jumped through a ton of hoops to get there with all the testing once I got there. But what was amazing is that I didn't have to stop and think about it. I didn't have to stop and say, can afford to do this? How is this going to work? The testing was the worst part. Finding the flights, using credit card points and miles was the easy part. And I could just immediately say, I'll be there. I'll be there in a couple of days. Hang on, mom is coming. And that is such a relief and such a nice thing to be able to do. Another time, my husband and I were ready to go on a monumental trip to the Mideast, and we were going to Dubai and Israel and Egypt. It was a tour that we paid quite a bit of money. We were using points and miles to fly over there. We were flying Emirates business class for the first time. It's going to be his first business class redemption, and really excited about it. And all of a sudden, this was in the I don't think it was really winter, but I think it was late spring, and Denver weather can sometimes be crazy. And we're sitting there and I'm seeing all these weather reports. There's an Arctic freeze. It's going to happen. Well, this was the day we're supposed to fly to LAX to get our redemption flight. And I'm freaking out. It's like, oh my goodness, what if we miss this? We're going to miss this tour. We're going to miss, or we might get to the tour, but we're going to miss those business class seats on Emirates. And I didn't want to do that. So because we had points and miles, I was able to get us out the day before everything really grinded to a halt. We honestly would not have gotten out if we had waited for the flight that we were supposed to take. And so that is an unsexy redemption that made a sexy redemption come true. And so I love points and miles for that ability to be able to pivot, immediately go into that stockpile of points and miles and, ensure that great trip that you have doesn't, not happen. So those are my stories. I have a ton more. We all have a ton more of sexy and unsexy redemptions. But Jess, fill us in on yours.
My favorites, hotel-wise, have been Conrad Bora Bora, obviously. I feel like Overwater Villa is the epitome of sexy redemption, and then being able to do it for like pennies on the dollar. It's just amazing. Another one that comes to mind is the Park Hyatt Sydney, being able to wear my robe and sit on my balcony and drink my cappuccino and stare at the Sydney Opera House. I was like, what is this? Like, this is crazy. And so those are just a couple of my sexy hotel redemptions. And then flight redemptions, obviously Emirates first class. Like, hello, taking a shower on a plane.
Yeah,
Well,
that was crazy.
I brought my glass of Dom Perignon champagne into the shower, and I was like drinking my champagne while taking my shower, and I was like, this is so, like, who am I? What is this life?
We actually have that on a reel.
No, I don't think we have it on a reel. I don't think I've put that out on the internet yet.
We do. I mean, obviously she's covered.
It was after the shower.
No, you were in the shower and you have your drink and you go like this. I'm gonna send it to you after we're done recording. I'm gonna put a link in the show notes to that reel. Because people are gonna want to see it.
They're gonna be like, I gotta go. And that reel's gonna go viral like a year after it's been posted.
If by some reason it's not in the link in the show notes, it's because I'm wrong. And Jess is like, no, we didn't post that, but I swear we did. So we shall see. You'll know if it really happened when you go to the link in the show notes.
There was definitely some content from that flight that I was like, I'm sending this to you, but I don't think it's probably very appropriate for social media. And then unsexy redemptions, like I said, my entire first year was unsexy. It's like, we will have people who on our Facebook group or students who will be like, thank you so much. I just started this 6 months ago, and me and my husband booked a business class flight to Singapore. And I'm like, what? I was still staying at Hyatt Places when I was 6 months in, like, who are these people? But a more recent one was just, at the beginning of 2025, my father-in-law passed away and we had to get back to Chicago. My husband's family is Jewish. And so the burial was going to be like, we were booking flights and the burial was going to be the following day. And so y'all know me, I don't ever book anything last minute. Like 6 months in advance is last minute for me. Okay. So the cash prices it would have been $3,000 for the three of us to fly from Houston to Chicago. And that's 2 major airports. It's not like we're flying out of some little tiny regional airport, like 2 major airports, but we're booking the day before, like less than 24 hours before the flight. So luckily United had saver availability for those same flights, and I was able to pay 30,000 miles round trip each instead of $3,000. And then we stayed at a Hyatt Regency, the Hyatt Regency O'Hare Airport, and I was able to use 12,000 Hyatt points a night for our room. And so we paid, $11.20 in taxes each and $0 for the hotel, which would have probably been like $3,500, $4,000 if we didn't have points and miles. And so I just think about that, like that would be, some people might not be able to go to a funeral because they can't afford to pay those prices so last minute. And so that was a huge like peace of mind to know like we're going to be able to go and it's fine. And, we're going to be able to be there.
Yeah. And that might be one of your best flight redemptions ever.
I think I honestly, like when I did the cents per point, I was like, I think this is the most cents per point I've ever gotten from my United miles.
Yeah.
Well, we hope that you all enjoyed learning about our unsexy and sexy redemptions. We want to reiterate that there is no wrong way to use your credit card points and miles. You do you. Whether you primarily book unsexy redemptions or those sexy redemptions that we all love, you are doing it right. Having a healthy stockpile of points lets you do it both ways, just like we do. If you'd like to learn more about how to travel for nearly free, register for our free webinar, How to Get Your Next Vacation for Nearly Free. You'll find the link in the show notes.
Thanks so much for listening to Points Talk with the Travel Mom Squad. Make sure to hit the subscribe or follow button from wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. Want to start jet setting even faster? Follow the links in the show notes to learn about everything we discussed in today's episode. And to stay connected and follow along, follow us on Instagram at Travel Mom Squad. We can't wait to see where in the world points and miles take you.